Good afternoon, soldiers, airmen, and NCOs of the U.S. Army and the U.S. Air Force. My name is Private First Class Gage, and today I'll be presenting my short story, essay on AR 670-1 to you. For those of you that do not know, I had infractions that violated AR 670-1, and as a result, I was instructed by Sergeant Ducharme to produce a 10-page story about AR 670-1. He gave me very few limitations on this, besides having 10 citations of AR 670-1 with regards to the events of the story. The events of the story are completely fictitious and do not represent my views or the views of the U.S. Army. I would like to start with two quotes. The first is from General George S. Patton, Jr. "The soldier is the army. No army is better than its soldiers. The soldier is also a citizen. In fact, the highest obligation and privilege is that of bearing arms for one's country." The next quote is from Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. "Sweat saves blood, blood saves lives, but brains save both." It was a cold drill weekend at Alpha Company, 3rd Battalion, and PFC Gage was not very excited. Every year in October, Alpha Company makes its way over to Camp Johnson and conduct SRP medical screening to ensure that the soldiers within the unit are physically fit and ready to deploy. This is one of perhaps 2 drills a year that the men of Alpha Company are not in the woods conducting some sort of field training. This is good, for Vermont in this time of year can be tragically cold and miserable for the infantry, where there is a howling wasteland that they live in, called Camp Ethan Allen Training Center. But as are most things in the Army, this is a double-edged sword. While PFC Gage and many of his comrades were no doubt thrilled that they would not be suffering in those woods, chasing an enemy that does not exist, coming to Camp Johnson brings its own batch of problems. For starters, the process of moving an entire battalion of Joes through SRP has a lot of problems with it. It's tedious, long, and starts generally in the early morning and goes all the way to the late evening, and tempers begin to flare. NCOs are under great stress to get their men through as rapidly as possible so the unit can get completely through and get dismissed for the evening. SRP is again one of only 2 drills a year that are non-runs, meaning that the men of Alpha Company don't have to remain overnight, thus allowing them to go home after the duty day and not stay in the drill hall. A third problem with SRP is the amount of scrutiny the company is under once they are there. Normally, Alpha Company is secluded by itself at seats, conducting training, but at SRP, there are many higher-ups afoot, and the leadership of the company are always very careful to express to the Joes in no uncertain terms what the penalty would be for bringing shame to the company in the presence of such important people. On this morning, the company had been instructed to assemble in the parking lot of the main building at Camp Johnson to await the first sergeant and commander. PFC Gage was waiting in the parking lot with several of his fellow junior enlisted soldiers. PFC Gage had been sure to make sure that he was presentable for the day, knowing that the punishment for appearing slovenly in front of other units, and especially in front of Pogues, would be swift and ruthless. He had been careful to shave his face against the grain so as to be in compliance of the Army Regulations of Personal Appearance, AR 670-1B. Facial hair may as well keep with their face clean shaven when in uniform or in civilian clothes on duty. Though technically permitted to wear a mustache in garrison, the men of Alpha Company were expressly forbidden from doing so under the penalty of smoke. PFC Gage had made this mistake once before in his career, arriving for a split training event to make up for a missed drill with a regulations-compliant mustache. He was promptly ordered to, and I quote, "remove that chesty molesty bullshit from his face," unquote, and that, quote, "that shit is for tankers and Pogues," end quote, Staff Sergeant Greg Bates, Texas. While smoking and joking with his boys in the parking lot, time slipped away until there was only 5 minutes or so left until the company was expected to form up for first sergeant. Suddenly, PFC Gage felt a subtle dread in the back of his mind that he had felt before, a sense that he had fucked up and did not know yet why. It is like a sixth sense for a young soldier, a creeping feeling in the pit of one's gut that gives you an innate sensation of impending doom. PFC Gage began to triple check himself. He had been sure to hot shave that morning. Against the grain! Against the grain. To be even safer. He was wearing the proper authorized headgear. He had his CAC card on him. He was wearing his dog tags. Just as he was about to have himself convinced that he was not fucking up, PFC Gage caught the infraction at the last moment, just as First Sergeant was disembarking the pickup truck. Because PFC Gage was basically the ultimate fucking badass, and has 4 combat tours, his first of which was in Nam, he was prone to forgetting sometimes that the Army had gone softer than 10-ply toilet paper since he first joined, and they had changed the uniforms out from under him. On this particular day, PFC Gage had worn his OG olive drab fatigues along with his accompanying necklace of human ears. PFC Gage promptly changed it into his OCPs. AR 670-1, Section 4-1, authorization for wear the combat uniform is authorized for year-round duty by soldiers when prescribed by the commander. It consists of coat, trousers, undershirt, undergarments, belt, socks, boots, and headgear. Just in time for First Sergeant to arrive. First Sergeant pulled up to the scene with the seal missing, end quote, 2 chains, and dapped up PFC Gage, and then offered him the honor of calling the company formation. PFC respectfully declined, as that was the top's duty to fulfill, and then he filed in with 2nd Platoon. PFC Gage was horrified upon completion of the formation to see a soldier with a full beard. On top of this, the soldier had a turban on his head, which triggered PFC Gage due to his belligerence, ignorance, and his experience in the Middle East slaying bodies. PFC Gage approached the soldier and immediately confronted them about their personal appearance and the wearing of the turban. The soldier, Private Gupta, calmly explained to them that the Army had progressed since PFC Gage had stormed the desert in '91, and that they were now much more inclusive, therefore making exceptions for religious accommodations so soldiers could be individuals. He cited the AR 670-1 allows for the wearing of turbans and the growing of beards. Section C, turban and underturban. An accommodated soldier may wear the turban or underturban or pakka as appropriate, made of subdued material in the color that closely resembles the headgear of the assigned uniform. Commanders may designate conditions where the underturban will be worn instead of the turban. The turban or underturban will be worn in a neat and conservative manner. PFC Gage thanked Private Gupta for informing him of these changes and promptly apologized for coming at the private sideways as foe. Private Gupta thanked PFC Gage for the apology and also informed him that his front right cargo pocket was unbuttoned and therefore flagrant violation of AR 670-1 4-8 combat uniform coat. The combat uniform coat is worn hooked, looped, button, zip. The coat is hooked and loop fasteners. Zipper closer. The blouse is going to have all buttons closed as well. Again, this is section 148. PFC Gage corrected the infraction before informing Private Gupta that he was a pogue and to fuck off. PFC Gage spent the rest of the day, well into the evening, languishing at SRP with his boys. Once released from SRP for another year, the company was dismissed and sent home. What this really means is that the company, command team included, stormed Church Street and started pillaging the bars well into the morning. The next day, the company arrived at seats for the annual PT test. PFC Gage, being a PT stud, woke up and got warmed up for his PT test with a Bud Light and a cigarette. While waiting in line to run his sub 10-minute 2-mile, PFC Gage noticed the company clown, PFC Penguin, disgracing the uniform just by being in it. Not only was PFC Penguin's facial hair completely out of regs, PFC Penguin was also not even wearing the proper uniform, exclamation point. PFC Gage was horrified, for PFC Penguin was bringing utmost shame to the private first class corps by wearing civilian gym shorts instead of the prescribed PT shorts issued to him by the good graces of the taxpayer and sergeant major. The IPFU consists of the following components: jacket, running gray and black with Army in black; pants, running black; trunks, running black with Army reflective; t-shirt, short gray with Army reflective black; t-shirt gray long sleeve; footwear and socks. PFC Gage saved the sergeant major, as well as the infantry, and most importantly Alpha Company, any further disgrace by strangling PFC Penguin to death and stuffing his body in the back of the LMTV. PFC Gage then proceeded to bust down a 9-minute 2-mile while chain-smoking cigs and hydrating with PBR, dusting all the nerds with their out-of-rigs Nikes and other nonsense. Section 10.6 General Guidelines. Footwear is not to have logos or ridiculous colors. That's the end of that regulation. PFC Gage kicked off his off-brand sneakers, but they were too damn hot after such a performance, and the commander had to spray him down with a fire extinguisher. Then PFC Gage woke up, and reality kicked in that he's actually a scrub. The end.